Hey, how's it going? I know it's been a while that I've, really updated this channel. So before getting to the point, I don't think I've actually made a video about what I'm about to talk about first. Don't worry, it'll only be like under a minute. If we get enough views, we kind of waste of time. So what I do want to talk about really quick is talk about I'm aware of the shortcomings of my videos. I know this is like 2007 era quality. So just so you all know, I don't have anything besides a laptop to work with. I don't have a good microphone, let alone a real studio quality room. And that's honestly probably going to be the status quo for financially another 2 years. What I do think I can do, so for 2023 roughly going forward, I can at the very least do what the Chornik does. Another person who mostly talks about the Pokemon anime, and what he does is he'll show clips from episodes with background music. I think that, and he gets plenty of views. I think that's the best I can hope for the next 2 years maximum. There might be some points where a friend of mine who does have a studio will let me use some stuff. Maybe I can't. I don't. I used to, but I don't like betting on best case scenarios because everyone ends up getting disappointed, right? Anyway, so let's get to the point. I want to talk about two things today. Three actually. So first of all, Project Mew. What did I think about it? All right, let's jump in. I liked it. The second part was stronger than the first part. One of my favorite PokeTubers, Lumiose trainer Zach, he was not so impressed with both parts. That's fine. It would be boring if everyone had the same opinions. But most people felt the first part was just a lot of walking and talking, and the second part was weak. Well, we'll get into that. So let's go over that. So, long story short, I'm not going to rehash the episode. I'm going to assume if you're watching this, you've seen it. Or maybe you haven't seen it, but you don't need much explanation. But with part one, the Project Mew team ends up going out to, um, the habitat where Mew is supposed to be, and they look for Mew. Now, for the first part, I do want to get some bad out of the way. So here's what I thought. I thought it was very silly how Go has been a companion of Ash's and seen all of his battles since Journeys began. Arguably, he's Ash's best friend he's ever made. It's hard to tell really when scaling comparing these things, but I think there's a good argument for that. I don't know why the writers felt the need for him to leave and you know, right before the most important battle Ash ever had. I did like the scene where they agreed, let's meet again with smiles on our faces, and Go thought about that, as you'll see in part two. But it was just weird, you guys. I mean, I don't hate Chloe, but Chloe is the last person who you could consider one of Ash's companions who I think should have been there. And Dawn is fine. They really drilled it home that she's his best female buddy, whereas Serena was even if it's just one-sided love interest. I still think if they were just going to have two of the girls, Serena should have been one of them. Whatever. But going on to Project Mew, so that means Ash isn't there with Go for his most important trial, although he's been there with him for those. Okay, whatever. Here's what I liked about the first part. We really learned more about. I like character development. We really got to know a little bit more about Go's goals, his aspirations. At some point, they retconned the whole idea of him wanting to rewrote him wanting to catch Mew because that just seemed unrealistic. So it was just I want to see Mew again. Feels like they made a ton of loopholes for him just to be able to do that. Um, Moving on to part two. So they're attacked. The group is split up. They're attacked by a Kyogre and a Groudon. If you put a gun to my handbag, what do you think is going on? I would have said it's definitely the two of them testing the group. They're not really attacking them. See if there's teamwork, which it was the case. And that it was probably Mew. How can Mew be two places at once? Well, we find out in this episode. Um, so that's what happens. Groudon gets the upper head. Gary throws water at it. I did think that was a little too simple, but again, the whole point is the reason why that worked is because Mew was testing them, not really trying to completely take them down. And that's what that was. And it reminds me a lot about with Legends Arceus. So with that, and old school too, the Safari Zone for the Kanto games, having to use objects to win a battle as opposed to just relying on Pokemon. Kyogre battle, similar. Grookey attacked, blah, blah, blah. Again, it's not that it beat Kyogre with a wooden hammer. It was a test of, the group working as a team. I'm not a fan of Ash's Grookey. I know anyone who is. But I did think this was its strongest moment, and it showed how Go is really bonded with it. Um, Also, I'm not doing this to make enemies or always seeming to be critical of, you know, um, the same people over and over and over and over again. If you really want to look, you can look on Twitter. You probably have a good idea. And I was thinking of not even bringing this up, but I was like, it's a good point to be made. Not naming a name here, but somebody who I've been following for a long time, who has a presence on Twitter, the PokeTubing community. He was complaining and saying that with Grookey, it didn't mean much because Grookey was, a weaker version of, Oshawott, Chespin, who was the poor man's Oshawott, which is very true, and Rowlet. Honestly, I wasn't even really impressed with Rowlet during Alola. It wasn't funny like Michimaru. It wasn't even funny like the lesser funny Chespin. It was just lazy. And, when it came to the games, I picked the Seal. Second place would have been the Cat, and then Rowlet. And the thing with Rowlet is, quite frankly, um, the people who make the anime know that it was popular. They know this, and the thing is, they kind of just got away with making a lazy Pokemon. I know a lot of people love it, but it was the only Pokemon on this team to be unevolved, probably the least justified to not be evolved. Corfish was tough, Gibble was tough, so I would say since Unova, least justified. But with that said, it just kind of was lazy, and a lot of people thought it was cute. It wasn't that funny. It had funny moments, but all of Alola was kind of weird. So yeah, not a big fan of Grookey. But the other point that this PokeTuber made though was we don't see Go's Pokemon that much, so it didn't mean much. I mean, that's just not true. I mean, you had the whole thing with the Heracross and Pinsir, that love circle. You've had a few other Pokemon that are second tier, but what I will say is we've seen more character development from some of Go's reserves than we did with Ash's reserves, until he uses them, like the Battle Frontier or the League. And when it comes to the starters, the three starters all had character development. Grookey the least, but when you say Go's Pokemon don't have character development, it's particularly off if you're talking about the stars, which Grookey is. Tangent aside. Anyway, they encounter Mew. Mew thinks they're just playing, doesn't have I talked to assist. By the way, if you ever want to find a blog, this is why I don't make my channels, my videos kid friendly. I talk about Pokemon a lot because explicit language will come up. If you are a parent and you know your kid watches any of these videos, just a heads up. So, my sister has a blog called Bleep Yeah the Muse. Begins with an F, ends with a K. I think you know the two letters in between. She doesn't update it anymore. She's busy with work, a baby coming, being a new homeowner. But she watched the Project Mew episodes. And I brought that up because, as the owner of that blog, she probably put out more and more Mewtwo insider content than anybody else on the internet. Just check it out. Anyway, in regards to that, so with this blog, it was brought up that there are quotes from Birth of Mewtwo about Mew being, to some people, an angel or a demon. All these exploits you can see with the encounter with Miyamoto, Jesse's mom, blah, blah, blah. What it comes down to, though, with Mew is this. It's immortal. It's playful. It's a kitten. It's an immortal kitten. And yeah, you can see that it befriends other Pokemon, but the thing about being immortal and blissfully unaware of these consequences, it's not a sad Pokemon, is it outlives everything. So it can't really relate to other Pokemon for very long as far as the ideas of mortality and whatnot. So when they're playing and it's accidentally beating up, so Mew starts playing, at least it thinks. Um, the team sends out Pokemon to weaken it and catch it. They all get their butts kicked. Mew continues doing this again and again. till all the bystanding wild Pokemon are severely injured. Then it realizes what's going on, heals them, and it pieces out. In the process, though, starts crying out to Mew, saying, this isn't the circumstance that I want to see you again. And he's the first to point out, hey, maybe we should stop trying to battle Mew. Look at all this collateral damage. It looks like it's just playing. Um, Gary kind of catches on to that too. Anyway, Mew does deem Worthy very pure of heart, because not only does the whole group see Mew, but it lands in his hands before leaving for good. Um, Here's the thing, it's not the most action-packed episode. I mean, if you were to describe it a certain way, it'd be like they beat fake Kyogre and Groudon, which, by the way, were Mew, both at the same time. So Mew's consciousness in two different physical separated forms that merge together. They see Mew, they battle Mew, lose, and then Project Mew disbands. But you really have to look at the dialogue and Go's character development. At least the second part of this video. So Project Mew is over. We have at least 2 episodes left to go before pretty much just right on time for New Year's, which is a big thing in Japan. 2 episode titles revealed. A YouTuber that I like, Charu, he brought up how, according to a TV guide, there's going to be a break on the week of Christmas, but the week before, there is supposed to be some kind of an episode. Title not revealed yet. So that gives us time for the characters to say goodbye. Before they do, let's get on to what I want to bring up next. My thoughts on Go as a character. So I already made a video about this, and here's a quick rehash and update. I think Go would have been a much more interesting character if he was a very experienced trainer who had caught every Pokemon from every region except for Galar, and he already had a few legendaries under his belt, so it's more believable. And from there, we would have actually had all the Galarian Pokemon fleshed out, which didn't happen. And on top of that, when he did catch legendary Pokemon, it would be more believable, working his way up to Mew. Long story short, a lot of people thought it was a stupid idea, mainly because he was new. And there were some strong starts. In one episode, he got every Kanto bug Pokemon. If they did a handful of those, that would have worked. And yes, there definitely should have been a ton of more off-screen catches, because no one wants to watch 900 Pokemon, even if it's during 3 years, get caught. It's redundant, it's not interesting, blah, blah, blah. And while it's not true that none of his Pokemon got character development, one of the reasons Ash, people hated it when they weren't used to the way the show would work out for many years. People hated this back in Kanto and Johto. They kind of got over it, but people used to complain Ash never catches Pokemon. Well, one of the developments for that, with the exception of the reserves, was his Pokemon all got character development. And I think people have realized that over the years. That didn't happen so much with Go. Anyway, because people thought it was a stupid goal, it was way too ambitious for a new kid, they were starting to slow down the rate that he catches Pokemon, that it seemed like the goal wouldn't even be reached. They decided, all right, well, here's what, and so people were all the more upset when he did get a legendary Pokemon. The idea was, well, let's have Project Mew, and maybe then Go catches Mew. And then it turns out, no, they rewrote it, so now he's just like, you know what? I just want to see Mew. Mew inspired me to become the trainer I am today, and to meet Ash and to go out on journeys. And that was what was really much better well said. I know when I make these videos, feels kind of rushed because I want to get to the point, and it almost might come across as a little catty or sarcastic, but I thought it was well done. And there we go. So before I get to the third point of this video, that leads me to an update on the second one. I don't think Go is a bad character, and as far as being a person with a personality, not a TV character trope, I think he was one of the most interesting characters we've had. He grew up as someone who was virtually a loner. He had one friend from childhood, Tokyo, who he saw had a huge gap before seeing again, and one other, that being Chloe, and she was the friend who was like, dude, what are you doing? Stop pushing people away by being cocky. And a lot of that was inherent interest at a young age with Pokemon, and then his way of putting up barriers. He meets Ash, he becomes more sociable. Ash is easily his best friend ever. He rekindles things with Tokyo when running into him. He feels Gary's nonsensical taunting, which the writers rewrote, with Gary saying, oh, I always taunt people because I want my rivals to be the best they can be. It's like there was nothing to indicate that back in the day with Ash. And because Ash is a champion, Ash is untouchable as far as, really tut-tutting, so that's why Gary doesn't do that. But he does with Go. I think Gary helped Go as a rival more than he did with Ash. With Ash, yeah, that was always the immediate. Gary was always the immediate reason to go to the next region or try out with the next league or something. But I really think every time something happened with Gary in an episode, could point out something that he learned from Gary. And yes, Gary even learned things from Go. And I like how this was all done in a 3 year period with one series as opposed to 5 years. Some people lump Kanto and Joe together as the original series. I like breaking them into different regions because they are, and they're based on different games. And to be honest, Jodo wasn't as good as Kanto, so it really hurts the original score. But anyway, that's that with Go. I think he was a good character. He just, as a person, developing things. His goals were all over the place, and that was silly. But here's the thing, two more things. His goal wasn't that different from other people that we've had who had goals that we didn't know what they were, or they were very abstract. Brock was wandering around with Ash forever, 4 series. And it was always some ambiguous thing about, well, I want to be the best Pokemon breeder. We never saw him breeding Pokemon. He wasn't useless. He cooked, he cleaned, he kept the group together. And then finally they were like, no, he's going to be a doctor now. And they decide that when he's off screen. And as soon as he's off screen, he actually makes a ton of progress. My sister and her husband, well, mostly her husband, who are not so kind to Ash, made the joke that everyone becomes successful after they meet with Ash. No, it's just that he inspires them and that carries over, and the writers never want to show anything that's hyper successful on screen. It always has to be off screen. But they grow when they're with him. A few more. I don't want to go down the whole line. Misty had this vague goal, want to be the best water Pokemon trainer. That never happened. After she was written off the show, she became a very good gym leader, and there you go. Dent wanted to become an S connoisseur. They were kind of suggesting. Still hasn't happened, but he has kind of wandered around. When Iris finally left, she had this vague goal of wanting to become the best dragon Pokemon trainer. Well, half her team weren't even dragons or even obeyed her. And then when she was off screen, she became the best dragon trainer and a champion. One more example I'll give, I guess, is just what's his name? Sophocles. He was like, well, I want to become an astronaut or something. Never saw any aspiration towards that in the series until Journeys, where he finally got an apprenticeship. The only thing that broke the mold was the Poke Contest girls. Every single time we had a girl who did that, we saw them get the ribbons, we saw them enter the Grand Festival, and get pretty close to winning sometimes. And the equivalent in Kalos. And that wasn't always the case with his friends, as I've been pointing out. So, at least with Go, we knew that he had goals and he kind of achieved them. First, it was catch every Pokemon, strong start. Then it was actually get into the final part of Project Mew, and they retconned that to see Mew. Well, he did it. In fact, because they got rid of the original goal because it was silly and he's seen Mew, that leads us to part 3. What are they going to do now? Now, here's the thing. Because I'm talking about Go, I'll start with Go first, then Chloe, and then Ash. Go has achieved his goal. He's the first companion of Ash's to have ever done this while traveling with Ash. And the question now is where to go from here. I think it's up in the air on purpose. I think it would be very silly to have an episode where he's crying because he thinks he's going to have to leave Ash, and then he stays with Ash. Ash's companions don't stay with him beyond one series, not since Brock left. So I'm not saying it can't become a thing again. I'm not saying I know for a fact that this group will definitely stay together, but here's the thing. He's got no reason to be on screen. The writers will have a much easier time just having him wander off doing his own journey and then figuring out what they want to do with him. That's the reality. Now, secondly, what should definitely be brought up is just that with Chloe. Chloe is honestly the most underused character we've ever had. She arguably isn't a companion of Ash's, definitely not a traveling companion. Every once in a while, she would show up and go on some journeys. When the series started, I actually thought she had the potential to be one of the most interesting characters ever because before she got Eevee, she kind of was just a regular kid who went to school. And I thought the companion manga where she wrote in a diary, based on journeys was very interesting. I thought there was a potential to throw a little bit of slice of life in there, but the fact is she didn't appear that much, and when she did, the writers didn't know how to write about a character who didn't care about Pokemon. So last but not least, they finally decided, well, we got to have her do something. She did stuff with Eevee. Everyone rightfully so thought that she'd go through all the evolutions. There'd be a Gen 9 Eevee we'd find about on screen before the games. That didn't happen. Okay. It looked like they were kind of leaning towards another contest girl. That didn't happen. Um, I think it would be very weird if now she's like, oh, I know what I want to do. Let's say it's get badges. And she becomes the first person we follow as far as, getting badges. Or maybe something with Terra Pokemon. Because honestly, I think that ship sailed. Are they going to continue with her? Maybe. I don't think it's a good idea because I don't think there are a lot of people who really dislike her, but no one gets excited about Chloe. It was weird when she showed up as rooting for Ash. And it took almost the whole series for Ash to go from someone who annoyed her to someone who she actually considered a friend. So, I mean, it'd be strange. Last but not least, I don't think it's a good idea for Ash to come back because what is there to do at this point? They made it clear when he became a Lola champion, it would be insufferable, insulting if he ever lost a regular battle again, let alone a gym battle. Every single time he did lose in Journeys, it was, well, these are really powerful trainers who, maybe they could become a champion somewhere. Um, or remember that gym leader from last time? Well, this is them even stronger. Who knows? And, in the new games, I did complete Scarlet, and they actually play with the idea that you can have someone who's a gym leader and Elite Four member, but they scale it, which is interesting. Um, but Ash didn't do the badge quest. Whatever. Well, now he's the most powerful trainer in the world. There is no championship above this. He has no reason battling anymore. What does Ash do if he's not battling? He's not a researcher like Gary. He's been a research assistant, which means basically go on journeys everywhere and, plot of the day, catch Pokemon. So, I mean, I don't really see him doing anything. There's nothing left for him to do. I did see a rumor that maybe he'll become like a teacher in Galar, which makes sense with the school. And he'll be one of several people who are champions and teach at the school. And then he'll even fade out after 14 episodes and appear every once in a while. Yeah, that's doable. I don't watch Boruto, and I didn't watch Naruto all the way through. I did for a while. I got all the way into right when we find out. It was after the pain arc. I know that. The point is, I did read the entire manga though, all the way through the end. And so what I can say is I haven't been there to see what Naruto is like as Hokage. I think having get to that goal is interesting. And maybe they've made it interesting, but I can't imagine him on a day-to-day basis like being what's the equivalent of a mayor. It's going to be really weird seeing Ash as a teacher. Very weird. And I don't think it would be honestly that exciting. And now's the time to put him out to pasture. It really is. And maybe they are doing it anyway with the whole teacher thing if he doesn't appear that much. I guess at least the next thing. Because of the real life issues they've had with scheduling and COVID over the last year, and this even before this, there were newer trends in Japan that were more popular than Pokemon when it came to anime. Pokemon still has staying power. I don't think they're ever going to get the kind of excited momentum that they had with the original series. I don't think it's going to happen again. Maybe if they do a Gen 9 anime and there's three main characters and they each do one of the different quests, the bases, the gyms, the Terra, Pokemon, the Titan ones, maybe they can go somewhere with that, but I don't know. Especially if, according to the rumor, that two of those characters returning are Go and Chloe because they don't have a ton of fans. They could do a fresh start, Gen 9 anime with a brand new protagonist, and maybe that would work. I think people are just really, I think the type of people that are currently watching the anime are the ones who've done it from the get-go, and Ash is that anchor for them, where they agree with that or not. What I think they could do is a few things. They could make an anime series that isn't 3 years long, or it's like a special 10-minute thing that comes out once a month. So you see the 8 gym battles from Trainer A, you see someone go get the Titan Pokemon, and then stuff with the bases. I think that might work. Not really sure. Anyway, that's about it. Gonna post this up on UPN. By the way, it's a very dead form, but it has a lot of dedicated followers. I post on there because of nostalgia. Because back when I was a teen, it was much more active. But I do post these videos, links to them on upnnetwork.com. It's very very dead Pokemon board. Anyway, what I'm gonna do in a minute is I'm gonna post one more video. It's my review of the new Pokemon games. Take care.